Welcome into a very rushed sports shuffle. I am flying Ryan Gilchrist, and it's all my fault.
Along with Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Brill. Ryan started his doing his imitation of Malik Willis in the pocket.
Yeah, it's been a very hectic week. Quick show note: there will be no podcast next week. All picks will just be online.
I
Probably
might
put them up Thursday.
I might be doing some YouTubers thing.
Yeah, Joel
Maybe.
might Joel
Maybe.
might do a solo, but there's not going to be a sports shuffle with both of us. I'll be traveling for Zach's wedding. Zach, of course, was in our preseason draft coverage. Jumped in here and there. He is getting married next
I,
week. I am
I
officiating the wedding, so I will not be available.
I don't want to think about what that mobile bill would be on your phone in the car while trying not to get into an accident, of
Well,
course.
good news
More,
is if I really wanted to do it, I could bring the laptop. I can
yeah,
try and get a
but
headset and do it that way. And who knows? Maybe on Wednesday we won't be busy. I know Thursday's out. That's the day of the wedding. Maybe there will be a day where it's not busy and I go, hey, Joe, you want to do it? But it's most likely not going
yeah,
to happen.
yeah. I can imagine you like you're at your wedding. What are you doing? We're doing a sports podcast.
Yeah, this wedding is brought to you by the Sports Shuffle because the next hour of the ceremony is sports podcast radio
I
show.
can imagine the bride would be going, okay, what the is the sports shuffle?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
She's no, I don't think she would appreciate that. But anyways, it is time for the sports shuffle. We're gonna recap last week. I think we're gonna do our pick first for tonight's game because it is only 45 minutes till kickoff, and we tend to talk a little bit longer than we over plan to. So
us,
let's start
us
with
never. We never do that.
yeah.
We never go over the limit.
Let's start with Jacksonville at New Orleans tonight. Trevor Lawrence is going to be playing. Travis Etienne is going to be in your lineup. Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram as well.
Please, Calvin Ridley, actually
Yeah.
do something this week,
Yeah,
please.
Evan Ingram at tight end is going to be in your lineup for sure. The two receivers probably should. Trevor Lawrence, I don't know. This is going to be a tough matchup. New Orleans got a very good defense. Both defenses are in play. Alvin Kamara has been the best player for the Saints
So,
offense all season, so
you
he's in your lineup.
are you wanting my pick early?
We'll take the pick here once I'm
Okay.
done breaking down the players.
Oh, okay.
We'll get into that just in case we do start infringing on kickoff time before we're done with the recaps. That way we don't be like, oh, the Saints got up to a 15-point lead in the first 5 minutes. Well, I'm going to take the Saints now that you might not have done otherwise.
Because you never know when the reverse probability theorem will affect Thursday night football.
Oh yeah, I mean the Bears did win 40-20, and we wouldn't have seen that coming other than Joel for some reason. Anyways, for the Saints, Alvin
They
Kamara's
got
been their best
lucky.
player. He's going to be in your lineup. Chris Olave is too good to bench, but he has been very disappointing, and Michael Thomas could be a depth play as well. I don't think this is a good game for Derek Carr. I don't think this is a game for any of the tight ends for the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans comes in at 3-3, locked in a very competitive AFC South -1 Carolina Panthers team. And the Jaguars come in first place in the AFC South at
The
4-2.
Carolina Kitties.
Yeah, this is not even. This is Carolina Mouse, right? Like there's no fight in that team. Although we will get to their game. They started off really good last week until they got stomped. Anyways, two good teams still.
Boy, did they get stomped.
Both with some playoff aspirations. We are getting to the midseason point very soon, so starting to see these teams separate. Who gets the win on Thursday Night Football?
Yes, I'm not sure if we have been waiting all week for it to start, but finally Trevor Lawrence is going to play. Thank the gods we actually might have a decent freaking matchup finally on Thursday Night Football, which is usually. I tend to think Jacksonville is just playing better recently, and Saints. I think the Saints are in for a wake-up call tonight, as Jags are a real team, unlike the Pats. Is not a week to get off for the Jags train. You know, if you're on the Jags train, I think you should stay on the Jags train. Woo, as the Jags D should shut down Carr. Very low total. Hoping, as I said once again, Ridley and Olave both do something this week. Olave did more than Ridley did last week. Seems like a trap game that you're kind of thinking, I might want to pick the Saints, but going Jags, here's why. Saints D can slow down the Jags, but the Jags are still the better team out of the two. And you really have to ask this: who have the Saints really played? Let's look at this. Saints have beaten a mostly toothless Titans, just like one good win on under their belt. The pathetic Mew Mews that we just mentioned, the Panthers, and a pitiful Pats.
Yeah.
The big question here is Lawrence, but hey, even in the case that they said that Lawrence wasn't going to play, when we're talking that PJ Walker can beat the freaking 49ers, then CJ Bithard had a chance, although now we don't have to necessarily worry about that unless, of course, Trevor Lawrence gets knocked out. But yeah, CJ, I think, still could have beaten the Saints. The Saints, when CJ Stroud throws his first pick of the entire season, that's the one thing you heard about again and again and again. CJ Stroud hasn't thrown a pick. Well, he finally did.
And it wasn't
What
even
happened?
a turnover.
Yeah, and what happened? It's probably not good to give the gift right back to their offense. Nice job, Saints. 4 chances late for red zone opportunities for the Saints to end up with how many points? How many points? Trace. That's 3 in English. So I'm picking the Jaguars.
I'm picking the Jaguars as well. Every game with New Orleans has hit the under this season. Joel, if you can look up what the, I think I might be able to get the spread on this one. So expect this to be a very low scoring game between these two teams. New Orleans, again, every game, all 6 have hit the under so far this season. They
Spread
are.
spread on this one I'm seeing as low as 2. No, actually there's 1 plus 1.5
And what's
and
the total?
total, let's see, going everywhere from 41. Pretty much it's settled on 41. That's
So
one
you're
140.5, but mostly 41s.
So you're looking at about a 21-19 implied point score in this game. That's a pretty low scoring one. And every Saints game is the under. So I'm taking the Jaguars. And if you remember back to when Kansas City played Jacksonville, was 17-9, really sloppy, not good offensive game. I'm expecting pretty much that style of game tonight. Don't be surprised if one of these teams doesn't get to 10. But I'm going to take the Jaguars in what's going to be probably a very ugly game.
There was one interesting tweet where I saw that the Jaguars have never won at the X post whatever bleep you call them now after one of the worst rebrandings I think in the history of rebrandings. Post tweet X whatever the bleep it is, but yeah, it said that the Saints, I mean that the Jaguars have never won at the Superdome. So
the Jaguars also have not traditionally been a very good team in their existence. And being in the opposite conference, how many opportunities have they had to go to New Orleans to play the Jaguars or in the Saints to even get a win? So it might only be 0-2, 0-3. And again, the Jags haven't been a good team historically, but they're a much better team now. Both on the Jaguars, and we go back in time.
Like Herbert Wells and the Time Machine, and you're going.
Yeah, we'll talk about the big injuries as we get to them, but we'll start quickly with Thursday Night Football. 19-8 Chiefs win over the Broncos. Offense need not apply. Very good defensive game from both sides.
Offensive.
The Denver Broncos defense showed up. I think it caused more concern with the Chiefs than anything. The Chiefs offense. The Chiefs are going to be facing the Chargers soon. They're going to be facing the Dolphins in Germany in a few weeks. This offense needs to get going. They did get a trade to get back Mecole Hardman, which was supposed to be the replacement for Tyreek Hill. Might come in and be the number 1 receiver for this team right off the rip. So they're at least trying. I don't think it's enough, but the Chiefs do get the win, move to 5-1.
Yeah, because Sutton was pretty much the only offense as there was for the Broncos, and for the Chiefs, of course. Travis Kelce, no real surprise, 124 receiving yards on 9 catches. He's definitely was the fantasy darling of that contest, and more and more Isaiah Pacheco he's becoming the lead back for the Chiefs. So you managed to snag him or pick him up, you're pretty happy.
Yeah, he's been very good. Next up, the final Final London game of the year.
Thank,
The Ravens win
thank God.
24-16 over the Tennessee Titans in the game I did not watch. That was just as exciting as I could have imagined. The Ravens get by because Justin Tucker can kick the ball really, really good. And, ugly game. Ryan Tannehill leaves us with an ankle injury. We saw Malik Willis in this game. Not ideal for the Titans as they fall to 2-4. The Ravens, they do win the game, go to 4-2, but another ugly performance by the Ravens offense.
Yeah, because Zay Flowers caught his first career touchdown, so centerpiece of the passing game. Tajay Spears, how about this stat? He outsnapped Derrick Henry 31-29. Let me say that again. He outsnapped Derrick Henry 31-29. That's not a typo. And yeah, whether you like it or whether you don't, Malik Willis, he's going to be the man behind the center. So yeah, get ready for your own little ride there, Tennessee. And the three whammies, yeah, Ryan Tannehill, just a bad start. And then, of course, he's got knocked out. You're still trying to figure out why DeAndre Hopkins is even in Tennessee. And if you're having any of Rashad Bateman, he's on the milk carton.
Yeah, he's done. The one good thing about Derrick Henry is when he's on the field, he is getting the ball pretty much every time, which unfortunately works as a tell. Oh, Derrick Henry's on the field. We have to stop the run here. But he is getting a lot of touches still, even though Tajay Spears outsnapped him. He's going to get a lot more work, Tajay Spears, that is, in games where they are behind and need to throw the ball a little more. That's what happened in this one. Derrick Henry, though, still had a very nice long run, a 15-yard touchdown on top of it. So not a bad situation for Derrick Henry this week. They are on bye. Both teams on bye, I believe, this week. Next up, we go to Washington, another 24-16 win over the Atlanta Falcons, and Desmond Ridder finally loses at home. Finally looked terrible. 3 interceptions in this one. The Commanders moved to 3-3. And I don't know how I feel about the Commanders as a team. That's kind of how they were last year, a 500 team. They're still there right now. The Falcons, though, Desmond Ridder is holding this team back. I don't know if they're better off with Taylor Heineke or if they need to make a change in the offseason to get a true number one quarterback. But Atlanta has a team that is primed to win and a quarterback that can't quite get it done.
Yeah, Drake London finally had his day
And
of
Kyle Pitts.
21 fantasy points. If you picked him up, you're a happy Falcons fantasy owner. If you're maybe not a happy Falcons fan, which a lot of them were trying to figure out what the bleep Arthur Smith was doing. The Falcons tight ends, like you just mentioned, Kyle Pitts, just all of a sudden 4 receptions and a touchdown each. Just sort of a amazing day when tight ends actually do something. Who would have thought? Who would have thunk it? And Terry Scary again, as he kind of started on fire and then kind of faded. He just had 14 points in PPR, but given what some people put up this week, that's not a bad number. And of course, three whammies. I'll get to the worst one there. Desmond Ridder, you're just trying to figure out what the heck he was trying to do. The Commanders' pass protection was just an enigma in of itself. And the worst whammy, Logan Thomas. If you start him in PPR, he got you a 0.1. That's it. Just wham.
Yeah, nothing exciting there. This was a week where only 2 or 3 games hit the over. It was a very low-scoring week. And we go to another low-scoring game. The Vikings win 19-13 over the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields leaves this one with a thumb injury on his throwing hand. He is probably out this week. We don't know exactly how long, but a dislocated thumb gets him knocked out of this game. But an ugly performance on both sides. Minnesota does get the win, but as I feared, this offense does not look as good without Justin Jefferson. There is major concern that when the Vikings play San Francisco on Monday night, this offense is just not going to get anything going, which should be a concern if you are a Christian McCaffrey owner, presuming he can play, a Deebo Samuel owner, presuming he can play, or Kittle or Ayuk who are healthy, because they could blow the Vikings out of the water very early. And if your guy does not score points early, they may not get the opportunity later in the game. But the Vikings do get a win. They are 2-4. They're only a game out of the last wild card spot. I know it's way too early to look at that, but the doom and gloom of the Vikings are dead, the Bears are dead, the winner of this game was still dead. Not quite accurate. I don't think there's a lot of belief in either one of these teams making a playoff run, but they win a couple games in a row. All of a sudden, this team, the Vikings, could be a 500 team, and you never know.
Yeah, Kirk Cousin actually had a solid game and didn't have any big mistakes late. Like one game I remember when everyone was like, "Okay, how come he didn't like spike the ball?" And he was like going to his helmet like something was wrong with some equipment. And Vikings defense finally actually had a good performance, 3 turnovers and 1 touchdown. You can never absolutely knock that. Of course, the 2 downs. Justin Fields didn't play great and couldn't finish the game, of course, due to the injury. And then that directly, of course, affects one. DJ Moore. Oh, man, what a letdown, especially after that just amazing week that he ended up winning your entire week. And now, just all of a sudden, back to life, back to reality.
Yeah. Bears are not going to be very good without Justin Fields offensively. They're already down a couple running backs. It looks like Roshan Johnson will be back, but tough break for the Bears. It doesn't sound like a super long-term injury for Justin Fields, but at least out week number 7, and we'll see about week number
8. Yeah, my one option that I did was I actually picked up Sam Howell as a temporary plug-in for Justin Fields, since actually doesn't have entirely a bad schedule for the next 4 weeks. The only bad matchup might be New England, but I don't know how much you really fear the Patriots.
You don't. They're one of the worst right now. Howell's a good pickup, and if you can still pick up Jared Goff, I mean, that's a good streaming option as well. And this week, Geno Smith's playing Arizona, so there's some good streaming options out there. I know I went after Purdy, Smith, and ended up getting Goff in 3 people. That was what I wanted first of all. But there are some options out there. 6 bye weeks this week, so keep an eye on your waivers. And there will be some weird drops coming up soon, so keep an eye. And maybe someone did something silly like drop to Justin Jefferson because he can be out 4 to 6 weeks. But you can still pick him up and put him on your bench and, have him for down the line. All right, next up, this one was one of the tougher games to pick this week, and Joel is gone. We're going to talk about Cincinnati and Seattle. Cincinnati gets a win 17-13. They look like they might be back. The 3rd win in the last 4 games for Cincinnati, but Joe Burrow looks like he's moving pretty well. Jamar Chase looks like he's back. Joe Mixon still working to get it going, but getting a little bit better. But that defense was great. Seattle struggled in the red zone, had a couple costly turnovers, was not as sharp as we saw before the bye week.
I was just doing my imitation of the Cincinnati offense in the last part of the game. I disappeared.
Yep. But they still got the win. But Cincinnati's 17-13 win gets them back to 500, and they are last place in the division, but only 1 game back at first.
Yes, definite ups in this game. Joe Burrow made at one point he made 15 straight completions, starting to look healthier. Kenneth Walker, clear leader in the backfield. Tyler Lockett, nice to see that while he lives in the shadow of DK, he's continuing to produce at an elite level, especially if you have him in fantasy. And both defenses made some nice switches at the halftime. Now the wins for the game. Geno Smith, what started as an extraordinary promising first half, bit of a rough performance. Joe Mixon is just, you're scratching your head as a fantasy manager. He's the only option in the backfield, and you're going, why does he have a season low in touches? He just doesn't make any sense. And, DK, I mean, I know it's kind of harsh due to his actual output, but yeah, both DK and Geno missed a few plays that really could have changed the entire game, so you're kind of scratching your head at DK too.
Yeah, DK struggled in this one, but the Bengals, I'm not worried about Mixon. They've had a pretty tough stretch of defenses, and he does have 100% of the work. I do think things will get better over time, but for now, a little disappointing. But the Bengals, 3-3, still in very heavy contention for that division crown, and we'll see if they can get the job done going forward. And we move on to the next one. This one we thought was going to be a free square, and it
so
was
much for that idea.
Not. As the 49ers fall for the first time all season to the Cleveland Browns, led by P.J. Walker.
Wow.
Who would have thought that was going to
Mm,
happen? But he got the job done. A couple late calls went against the 49ers that
mm,
set them up, but you have to be impressed with how good this team ended up doing. The Browns defense really shut them down.
mm,
Offensively for the Niners, Debo Samuel was banged up in this one,
mm.
as was Christian McCaffrey. They played Monday night, so it's going to be interesting to see how they fare going into that game. But yeah, Cleveland gets a win, goes to 3-2. 49ers drop to 5-1.
Yes, both defenses definitely have to dedicate the old song, under pressure, dun 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 dun, as they were definitely both the definite clear winners for the entire day. It was sad that the team actually had to lose this contest. The whammies, the whammies, the whammies. Yeah. First one, Brandon Ayuk, just with the target share that he's getting, it's probably good if you secure more of those targets. Ayuk was not on fire. And of course, yeah, the heartbreaker of the day, Jake Moody missing the 54-yard try in the first quarter. And then the ultimate heartbreaker with just 9 seconds left on the clock. Game winner, 41 yards out. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah.
Yeah, tough breaks for the Niners, but they fall to 5-1. Moving on to the Saints. We already talked about every game hitting the under they've been in. This one was no exception as they lose to the Texans 20-13. CJ Stroud's first
Mm,
interception was fumbled right back to the offense, so no harm, no foul on that one. And the Texans get the job done. A pretty balanced effort. Dameon Pierce has not looked
mm.
great this season, but well, you end up in some weird situations sometime. As the Texans and Saints both exit this game in 3-3, I think there's a little bit of hope for the Texans and maybe a little more concern for the Saints after this one.
Yeah, because Dalton Schultz is the former Cowboys tight end, found the end zone for third straight contest that he is back in business as a fantasy tight end number one. Devin Singletary is proving an all-purpose back and has definitely provided the experience and the versatility to the Texans offense, and he's just becoming a very, very nice safety blanket for the team. And Alvin Kamara is just being Alvin Kamara again. 26 touches. He has definitely ascended back to his place as an RB1 fantasy volume. Now, for three, Wes Damian Pierce outplayed and outcarried by Singletary. So definite heartbreaker this week for fantasy. Michael Thomas, just the good news, he is healthy and he's a contributor, but he's just not making much of an impact. And then, of course, Robert Woods, the veteran former LA Ram, just not really there. Just three targets, Wyan.
Yeah, it was really not an offensive game in any way, shape, or form. It was good to see Dalton Schultz get back involved. Did have a big couple of plays, including a touchdown, but
Hmm.
the Texans get the job done and they move to 3-3. They are definitely in contention in the AFC South, something I don't think we would have assumed going into the season. Speaking of the AFC South, the Colts and the Jaguars played on Sunday, and well, one team showed up for most of the game as the Jaguars win 37-20. Gardner Minshew showed why he's the backup for the Indianapolis Colts with multiple turnovers in this game. Jonathan Taylor did get more of the workload than he did the week before, but wasn't quite the full Jonathan Taylor experience yet. Remember with Josh Jacobs, it took 3-4 weeks for him to really get going. I think it's going to take another week or two for with Jonathan Taylor to really break back out. But
Josh
the job
Taylor,
will.
it's a new player.
Josh Jacobs coming out. He's doing really well. But I think Jonathan Taylor, 2 more weeks, he's going to be the number one back in that backfield without question, and it'll get better. But the Colts fall to 3-3. The Jaguars win, move to 4-2. They play tonight for a chance to go to 5-2. That'd be a big win in the division, but the Saints are going to try and avoid that one. So, what do you got on this game?
Yeah, Michael Pittman Jr. definitely one of the three ding ding dings. He had finishing with a 14 team high targets, 9 receptions, and a buck 9 for receiving yards. That's decent any fantasy day. You'd like a touchdown in there, but hey, with how last week went. We'll take it. Travis Etienne, pretty good. Just two more touchdowns. Looking pretty nice on that stat sheet. 83% of the snaps in every red zone carry. You are loving that as a fantasy manager. Not so much if you played against them, but hey, and Zach Moss, even with JT back in the fold, Moss still saw plenty of action. Now
Yeah,
the
he got a
three,
touchdown.
it's like, hey, you can't knock that at all. And the three went was, as you mentioned, Gardner Minshew, 4 turnovers, not gonna do it for the Colts de facto starter. Yeah, just trying to figure out Josh Downs. Just a curious selection for some. His touchdown grab, of course, saved the day for his fantasy managers. But yeah, just the second most targeted member of the Colts, yet finished seventh on the team in receiving yards. I'm not too sure if you're going to rush out and grab him. And oh God, yeah, Calvin Ridley. He led the Jaguars in targets, 8, yet finished with only 4 catches, boom, 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 for 30 freaking yards. Like,
Yeah, Josh Downs might be a PPR play, but he is not a standard league play by any stretch of the imagination. But I expect the Colts to rebound. But the Jaguars are a good team, so you can't fault them for just a bad week this week. Next up, the Dolphins. Panthers got out to a 14-0 lead, and with how weird the rest of the week went, it was possible this one got a little funky. And then the Dolphins, oh wait, they showed up and win 42-21 over the Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen, though, been one of the best wide receivers in football this season. Tyreek Hill has been the best wide receiver in football this season. Raheem Mostert's been the best running back in football this season. And yeah, Miami looks like a team that is just absolutely rolling. They play Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football, so that's going to be a big game for both teams. Panthers, though, 0-6, struggling to get anything going. The Dolphins 5-1, tied with the Chiefs for first place in the AFC.
yeah, Panthers definitely would have the. I could care less about the team struggling sound clip. Here is Raheem Mostert with, of course, with Mr. Achan out. Mostert is just being the clear top running back in this explosive offense, and it has definitely exploded as he just looked unstoppable against Carolina, like he took a couple power pellets or something. Jalen Waddle didn't have a huge what you call breakout game, but he was involved with the offense and reminded us that he's still a pretty phenomenal weapon. And Adam Thielen, you mentioned him. How about he has just turned back the clock to 2018? You hearing that Cher song in your head? If I could turn back time, somehow always open in Miami, especially with that defense trying to figure out how. Of course, two whammies for this game. DJ Chark, if you spent some fab on him or saw him on the waiver wire, he seems more of an afterthought on this offense currently. And Miles Sanders didn't even play in this one, but Chuba Hubbard looked good and could demand more work going forward.
Yeah, we'll see about all of that. Adam Thielen has been just a revelation. If you got him late or off the waivers
Oh
in a
man,
draft, you hit such a
you,
good pick this
you
year with
stole
Adam
a
Thielen.
you stole a WR1. Just
I
what?
mean, imagine your late round picks are something like Raheem Mostert and Adam Thielen, and you've pretty much solidified a great fantasy team if you just drafted those two guys in your 10th or later rounds. Last year, the Patriots played the Raiders, and Jacoby Myers cost the Patriots the game. This year, he is part of the Raiders, and he cost the Patriots the game once again, as he was very good in this one. Looks like the number one wide receiver. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo leave this game with a back injury. Brian Hoyer came in. It was the Patriots' revenge tour for the Raiders, with Jacoby Myers, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brian Hoyer all being former Patriots. And they get the job done. 21-17. The Patriots looked better than they had the 2 weeks prior, but that is saying very, very little. The Patriots go to 1-5 and are arguably one of the three worst teams in football. And I don't know if you can debate that.
Yeah, because you just have Kendrick Bourne, who was by far Mac Jones' go-to guy, what a go-to guy for the Patriots are. You're just amazed they actually scored 17 points. You had some pretty crisp route running and chemistry with Jones. All of a sudden, you're wondering maybe they would win one. Yeah, no, not today. And of course, Michael Mayer, rookie tight end, given the chance to shine and show why the Raiders decided to move up to draft him. So not only is he an effective blocker, he's also a decent receiver. And nice to see some tight ends emerge from that tight end muck that we have become so accustomed to this year. And oh boy, Ezekiel Elliott, it's good for Double E that he's emerging, but that's bad, of course, for Ramondre Stevenson. As Stevenson, of course, still carrying the bulk of the load, but yeah, Zeke's sort of eating away a little bit of that fantasy feast. And of course, the Wes, Devontae Adams, just every time you turn around, you hear some quote that he's not happy with his role, he wants more. Usually is not indicating a good time on the team. As already mentioned, of course, from Ramondre Stevenson, he's not in danger of losing his job right now, but you have to be wondering about Ezekiel Elliott eating into some of those snaps. And ah, Josh Jacobs just sort of seemed to, even though he had a win, don't know if sort of felt like it kind of took a little bit of a downward spike this week, but he's still ramping back up. So don't, by any stretch of the imagination, bench him or start him for somebody else. For right now, he's still an RB1.
Let's see. Josh Jacobs. I know this is standard, so it's probably a little different in PPR. He is. Why is it not showing me? Running back 16 on the season. He had a very bad start to the year, so things will get better for him. I don't worry about that at all. Raiders, though, Devontae Adams. That's going to be a problem. They might have to find a way to trade him, but they are 3-3. Like, this is not a team that's out of it yet. Um, or maybe they just have to force feed Devontae Adams the ball, sort of like Joe Burrow did with Jamar Chase last week. Next up, boy, your Buccaneers did not stand the test,
Oh boy.
stand up to the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions look very, very good. Jared Goff had one of the best games of his career, even though he only had 2 touchdown passes. Bucks offense just could not get anything going. The Lions win 20-6. They moved to 5-1, tied for the best record in football this late into the season for the first time since 1993. Buccaneers still on top of the NFC South at 3-2, but for the second time this season, they've played a team that looks like one of the top teams in the NFC, Philadelphia, now Detroit, and they've lost by 2 touchdowns. I think this says Tampa Bay is a good but not great team, and the Lions could be something very, very special this year.
Yeah, Buccaneers didn't play great, but at least they look good in the creamsicle uniforms. You're just trying not to mimic that 1976 Tampa Bay team, and they did a little bit of that today on Sunday. Good God, as Amon-Ra St. Brown just returned from injury, he didn't miss a step, and just he consistently stands out as the star and the sun god that everybody calls him. And Josh Reynolds, and while his line didn't look spectacular, he is slowly looking like Jared Goff's insurance policy. And Chris Godwin, finally back to back good fantasy performances from Godwin after a slow start in the season. He still needs to see the end zone, but we like seeing his usage go up and slowly getting back into starting lineups. Oh, yeah, that feels nice. Now, the whammies, that would be the Detroit running backs. You saw the first half action of David Montgomery. Jameer Gibbs, you're trying to figure out what's going on there. Replacement from Craig Reynolds. It's just what a mess. Rashard White just an almost even split with Keyshawn Vaughn, and it just wasn't a case of the game was out. Well, actually, was a case of the game was out of hand, and just an ugly running game against a good defense. But yeah, even against an average defense here, you're still waiting to see the emergence of Rashad White as the lead back. And a little bit of also a disappointing day for Sam Laporta, whom we have come to expect more out of his tight end. So kind of a little bit of a downer this week.
Sam Laporte, a lot of targets, nothing to worry about there. We mentioned the running backs. Jameer Gibbs is practicing, trending in the right direction, but David Montgomery, a cartilage injury, not expected to play in week number 7. I don't think he's been officially ruled out, but that should be coming tomorrow or Saturday. Not expected to be a super long-term injury, possibly one of those get it healed, get a flak jacket, and let him just kind of protect himself, but going to miss at least 1 week, it looks like, if not more. And we move on. The Rams, Cooper Kupp is back as the Rams win 26-9. Kyron Williams and Ronnie Rivers exiting this game with injuries, both expected now to miss multiple weeks. Kyron Williams, worst case scenario, coming back after the bye in week number 11, and Ronnie Rivers is going on IR. But Puka Nacua, a down week this week, still going to be there. Cooper Kupp is still just a man possessed, as the Cardinals have activated or opened the window for Kyler Murray off of IR this week. He's got 21 days to be activated, or he'll be shut down the rest of the season. But early practice reports are he is full go, so it's possible Kyler Murray comes back this week for the Cardinals, and a team that's been fairly competitive until the last couple of weeks. Maybe you get Kyler Murray back and you make a little bit of a rally. I don't think it's a playoff team, but you could. The Rams go to 3-3. Cardinals fall to 1-5. And Joel, your thoughts?
Yes, Kyron Williams, of course, an impressive performance. Cooper Kupp doing Cooper Kupp things. I mean, he has talked about another receiver player who has not missed a step. I mean, back to WR1 numbers. You were happy if you started him. And Hollywood Brown, as much as Adam Thielen continues to amaze, ditto for Mr. Marquise Brown, just having another good week. And I think you start him until he tells you otherwise with what he does on the field. 3 went was just Zach Ertz. Yeah, so good at Ertz. Yeah, it might hurt if you start him this week. 2-2 Atwell, of course, with Kupp back. You had all of the Puka Nacua 2-2 Atwell hype, but now with Kupp back, he's definitely taking away some of that fantasy feast. And once again, Tyler Higbee, just similar to Atwell, he's now the 3rd or 4th option on a team that barely looks to the top 2 receivers. So kind of getting a little bit bare with Cooper Kupp back. It's good for Kupp owners, but it's kind of bad for the other owners.
Yeah, Tutu Atwell is going to be a depth play. Maybe something you have to get lucky on 1 week or another. But if an injury pops up, he's going to be the next man up. And we move on. Next up, Jets 20-14 win over the Philadelphia Eagles in a game the Eagles threw away. Jalen Hurts 3 interceptions in this game. Turnovers killed the Eagles as the Jets get by with 4 field goals and then a touchdown and 2-point conversion late in this game. Eagles let him score the touchdown to get the ball back as quickly as they can and couldn't get anything going. The Eagles were the last undefeated team at that point, so there are no more undefeated teams. The Jets at 3-3, still in the race for a playoff spot. Maybe not for the division, but still a lot of time. Maybe they will be. Eagles fall to 5-1, and they're leading the NFC East. Shrinks just a little bit. Eagles face the Dolphins next Sunday night, so that is going to be a big test for both teams. But the Jets, they break the undefeated season for the Eagles, and they get the win behind Zach Wilson, who was not good in this game, but still got the job done. Great defense by the Jets as well.
Yeah, A.J. Brown, he keeps going up, 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 up. If you have him, you're starting him. Garrett Wilson, I don't know who Derek Wilson is, but he's not on this team. After a disappointing week 5, Wilson reminded fantasy managers why they took him so high on the draft's boom money week. Brees Hall, even when he couldn't get anything going on the ground, he came up big as a receiver. He's showing why he can get it done through a various different ways and dimensions. As 3 whammies. Dalvin Cook, another week where he continues to be an afterthought with minimal usage. Tyler Conklin, just when you think that maybe he could have a good floor. Boy, and Devonta Smith, that PPR stat line wasn't too bad, but when you have 2 easy drops and 2 relatively disappointing outings for how good we all know this young man can be, that's a whammy for this week.
Yeah, you take Devonta Smith's first couple of weeks out of the equation, and all of a sudden, it's a bad season for him so far. Only time will tell if that continues, but not a good season so far for one Devonta Smith. And we move on to the waiting all
Another
day.
ugly game. Ugh.
Waiting all day for Sunday night because you need a nap, and this one will put you there, all right? As the Buffalo Bills do manage to win 14-9, but this was a snooze fest. Quite literally, I fell asleep in the third quarter because, well, there was nothing going on in this game. The big moment of this game was the Giants getting stuffed inside the 5 right before halftime, running the ball with no
You've been
timeouts.
snoozing all day for Sunday night.
Something like that. But the Bills get it done in the second half. Josh Allen briefly left this game with a shoulder injury. He says he's good to go. He showed up in the second half and got the win, but the Giants fall to 1-5. Bills 4-2, rebounding after the loss in London, but another disappointing performance 2 weeks in a row. Yes, they showed out against Miami, but I think they got up for that game. And since then, it seems like the heart and soul of this team has kind of faltered a little bit. Maybe it's just jet lag. Going back and forth to London is not easy. No bye week after that London game, but the Bills' offense has been a little suspect. Now, Stephon Diggs has been very good, but James Cook has completely fallen out of the rotation. Gabe Davis broke his 4-game touchdown streak this week, was not good. And the Bills just didn't look 100% what we expected of them, especially since the Giants are one of those teams you expect a team like the Bills to pound.
Yeah, you didn't expect this game to come down to the final play and the Giants actually have a shot at winning the sucker. But yeah, the ding dings. Yeah, Darius Slayton. Did the Chiefs need to trade him to somebody? He's definitely an underrated whiteout. Saquon Barkley. It was nice to see the superstar runner back. No worries about easing him in, as yeah, he is a super stud once again, even in the almost win but ultimately loss. And Stephon Diggs, can you dig it? He's still the main man, still producing.
Number 2 wide receiver on the season behind Tyreek Hill.
And the three went was yeah, you have him on team. Darren Waller failed to make a meaningful impact again, even when an offense was doing things. James Cook did most of his damage on back-to-back runs in the first half, but ceded a lot of snaps to Latavius Murray is sort of a that helped no one type performance, and he just wasn't really targeted out of the backfield. And you mentioned him earlier, Gabe Davis. He was sent to the doghouse in this game, flying.
Yeah, wide receivers are inconsistent, and Gabe Davis had a pretty good season so far. One other note: Damian Harris with the scary neck injury in this game ends up being a neck sprain, not as severe. He did go off in an ambulance on a backboard, but it was not as significant as the Damar Hamlin injury by far, but some other neck injuries as well. Did give a thumbs up before going out. He has been released, but it would be shallow to not mention that there was another severe injury in this game that he's fortunately seemed
Yeah,
to be fine from.
you know it, and in time it's not good when you hear that the player has movement in his extremities. That's like
Yeah, thank God you have that, but it sucks that we have to hear that so we can feel a little bit better about what we just saw. Damar Hamlin, though, visibly upset when he saw his teammate going off in an ambulance because he was part of that last year, so a tough one for him. All right, next up, Monday Night Football. Two high-powered offenses
I
combining
think
for
we're
30-something
still
points.
having flags and penalties being thrown from this game because this had been the worst penalized, mistake-filled game of the entire freaking week.
Yeah, the refs kind of ruined this game. It started off 7-7. Both teams looked good early, and then it was just
Penalty,
penalty,
change,
penalty,
pen,
penalty. Let's ruin the flow of this game, and it ended
penalty,
up being a snooze fest.
penalty, change in the air pressure on both teams. I mean, it was that bad.
Yeah, 20-17, Cowboys win over the Chargers, but it was really a game that was just derailed by the refs. Another one that if you watch it, the highlight of this game was the little Asian lady who was like celebrating the Chargers, who originally was a Minnesota Vikings fan. She moved to Los Angeles, became a Chargers fan, which is weird enough. But that was like the highlight of the game was a fan just losing her mind in the stands, positive and negative,
And it
which tells you all
wasn't
you
a
need to know about this game.
and it wasn't a famous pop singer either.
It wasn't. But yeah, that was the highlight of the game, which tells you everything you need to know. So Joel, your recap on this one.
Yeah, because C.D. Lamb, of course, got involved early and often. Finally, he had the type of game that we all wanted when you drafted him. Keenan Allen, it didn't feel like he was the same guy whose hamstrings seemed to have him struggle, but he definitely looked explosive. And yeah, you know the pain if you played against him in fantasy. And Dak Prescott, all the hype, finally looking like the total package at QB. Now the went was Michael Gallup. He was able to salvage his fantasy day with a couple of catches, but this game wasn't exactly what you would call his best game in any respect, as he had dropped a couple of easy catches, including a well thrown ball by Dak Prescott in the end zone, and you're really yelling at the TV if you have him on your fantasy team when that happens. Austin Eckler, hard to believe I'm putting him in the whammies like Pollard. Eckler got plenty of work. It just didn't go anywhere. And Jake Ferguson added a lot of value as a blocker, but just couldn't be found for more than one reception. How many receptions? One season low. Just 2 weeks ago, Ferguson was averaging over 5 targets a game. Last two, he is just down to just four total.
Yeah, another ugly game on the week. Hopefully, this week will be a little more exciting, but a couple games hitting the over. This one was expected to be a high scoring affair, and it was one of the higher scoring games of the week at a total of 37. So, kind of a slow week for football last week. Some big injuries, and we go into a bye apocalypse. 6 teams on bye week. So, yeah, it's not getting any easier. If you've done fantasy, you are doing fantasy, you have all your injuries, you have all your headaches, and then now you have the bye weeks of the Panthers, Texans, Cowboys, Jets, Titans, and Bengals. So a lot of big names there. Henry, Mixon, Brees Hall, Pollard, Pierce. I mean, Sanders, I'll throw him in there. Thielen, Nico. You got CD Lamb in there as well. Garrett Wilson, no receiver for the Titans is really relevant, but I guess DeAndre Hopkins, Jamar Chase out, Burrow. I mean, there's just a lot of good names fantasy wise on bye on top of the injury. So with that, be prepared, and let's go quickly to final thoughts because we're about to get to kickoff.
Yep, well, I'll tell you, flying. While reality football was fun this week, fantasy football not so much. Buckle up. I think we're in for the same with all the bipocalypses more this week, as demonstrated, of course, by the Monday night football game with Pollard and Eckler. Disappointment is everywhere, from P. Ryan being pitiful to Ridley straight up vanishing. Hopkins has all but vanished in Tennessee. And wherefore art thou, Stevenson? Don't even mention Jerry Judy. I know people are going, he's still in the league this year. Also, way to go, Logan Thomas, a point. Just one single point. The Bucks at least had Godwin, but what a day they got destroyed and mauled by the Lions. But hey, at least they looked good in the whimsical uniforms in the disastrous day at Ray J. And final thought, note to the media, especially to the Dallas centric folks, can we calm down a bit? This was the Chargers. Here, chill, please. And that's my final thought.
Yeah. My final thought, very short, very sweet. If you see a trade offer thrown to you in a fantasy league, respond to it for Christ's sake. Don't leave it sit for days on end. Don't respond. Don't say anything. At least say something. Hey, I'm considering it. Let me, no one's going to mind if you say, hey, give me time to think. But when you see it, you can see it, especially in Sleeper. You can see when something's been seen between messages and stuff in the chat. You can see if someone is ignoring you. So if you do get an offer, for the love of God, just send an answer one way or the other. That's my final thought. Anyways, we are ready for kickoff. So we're going to wrap this up real quick. I am Flying Ryan Go along with
Tampa One Mouth, Joel Verlin.
and we'll be back Saturday with the rest of week number 7. And again, no official podcast next week. So we'll be back in a couple weeks to do this all over again. And with that, we go.